Hi, and welcome to week 2. This is your lecture for the week. Last week we looked at the human population and the exponential growth that we are experiencing and looks like we'll be experiencing in the near future. So we're going to look at some factors, the factors that go into what causes human population growth. We're going to look at things this week more in detail, like the birth rate, the death rate, infant mortality rate, and any other factors that will affect the human population growth. One of the key things that we're going to look at this week are age structures for different countries and how we can illustrate them and how we can understand the population growth for different regions and different countries. So, why has the population exploded? Well, the first is that there are more people, and the more people there are, the more children they can have. And sociologists call, if you just have enough children to replace the current population, as the replacement growth rate. And we're currently well exceeding that. Another reason that the population is growing is because we have medicines, we have greater control over diseases, we have better sanitation, so many people are living longer. There is still much hunger in the world, but because the global food supplies right now are so great and because there is so much giving, there are less people dying of starvation anytime prior to now. The average life expectancy for a person in 1550 was only 8.5 years. In 1935, the world death rate was 25 people per 1,000 people, and today it's only 9 people per 1,000 people. Now, if we want to look at the different structures and different areas where the population is either growing very quickly or basically staying the same, we're going to look at what are called population histogram, and this is one of your discussion assignment for this week. This is also known as an age structure. And for this portion of the lecture, I suggest that you refer to figure 4.6 in your textbook, because that way you can actually look at the histogram the same time while I'm teaching it. So take a second, get your book, and go find it. Okay, you're back. Now, the first population histogram that we're going to look at is called the more expansive one. And the age histogram simply shows the number of people who are alive at every age. So from 0 to 100, it will tell you how many people are alive in that age group for a country. The first histogram that we're going to look at is called the more expansive. And the more expansive has a really broad base. So the pre-reproductive ages are from ages 0 to 15. And so you have a large population of people in that age. The next is the people of reproductive age, which is from the ages of 16 to 45. And you'll find that you still have a very large population group in that. And then there's post-reproductive age. And what you find in these in these types of histograms is that you have a very small population that has made it to the post-reproductive age. The more expansive histogram is generally a picture of what a less developed country would look like. And I'm going to use the country of Mozambique to illustrate why this histogram would fit the population in that country. Currently, the population in Mozambique is 26 million people. Now, the median age in Mozambique is only 17 years old. The infant mortality rate in Mozambique is 7%. One of the reasons that we're going to see in less developed countries why women and families have more children is because of the increased infant mortality rates. And so you'll have more children because the fact might be that you might lose a child. In some of these countries, specifically in sub-Saharan Africa and in Mozambique, they live on a subsistence agriculture, so they're basically providing enough food for their family to live, and if they have a bad crop, then they don't have food for their family. So some of the men will go to the diamond mines in South Africa and other places, and in those places there are prostitutes, and a lot of them are HIV positive. So the men will sleep with the prostitutes, and then they'll go home and they may infect their wife and then possibly the children that they will have in the future. And in Mozambique, a lot of this happens, leaving for jobs and coming back. And the minimum estimate for the country is that there's almost an 11% HIV rate. Other factors are the fact that malaria, waterborne diseases are prevalent. They have poor sanitation. They have unclean drinking water. And the life expectancy for the people in Mozambique is 53 years. So this is why you have a large base of children under the age of 15 going into a large population of reproductive ages. But then you have very few people. Only 5% of the people in Mozambique are greater than the age of 45. Now, because these are subsistence agricultural society, Mozambique also has low, the land, it has low agricultural productivity. And if we look at the effects of the population and the land, a lot of the forests there are being cut down because the main source of fuel is firewood. So forests are being cut down because people need a fuel source. The other is because the land has such a low productivity rate, they will cut down forests so that they can have new agricultural land. It may only be fertile for 3 to 5 years, and then they have to cut more down and move on just to try and feed their family. So when we look at these population histograms in the next coming weeks, we're going to see reasons why in certain countries there may be more ecological damage of different types. The more developed countries, the ones that have coal power plants, may be putting more air pollutants into the air. Other countries may have more agricultural waste. So we're going to learn that based on the countries and the people groups that are there, that all of this is interconnected with, are we using resources sustainably, or are they even available within these countries? So the next topic that we're going to look at is in relationship to world population and world hunger, is how can we preserve or rehabilitate the existing farmland that we have right now to stop world hunger. The first thing that we're going to look at is how can we stop the conversion of existing farmland to other to other uses, whether it's for building a city or something like that. The main thing we're going to look at right now in this lecture, though, is how to increase the productivity of existing farmlands. And we're going to look at 5 ways that we can do this. And the first is to increase irrigation, or to make the irrigation much more efficient. Now, there are ways to irrigate farmland more efficiently. We found through different irrigation technologies that if you use drip irrigation, you're using 50 to 90% less water, and you're still able to get enough water to your crops so that they're going to produce a sustainable yield. The second way that we can increase the productivity of existing farmland is by improving the yields through selective breedings. So the staples like corn, wheat, rice, and soybeans, agricultural geneticists have made new strains of these seeds through cross-pollinations and other methods. And as this has been done, they've created strains of wheat that are now 70% more productive than they were before, and they have also made strains of potatoes that have a 500% more greater yield than they did before. Some of these seeds are being developed specific to different climates. So there are seeds that are being made for tropical and subtropical use, which in areas in Africa is really good because they can take these seeds now and they can have increased yields specific to their climates. Some of these seeds grow faster, so rather than just having one harvest, you can actually plant 2 crops in a season. You can have 2 harvests, which increases the productivity of the farmland and feeds the family. Some of the issues, though, are that these seeds are expensive, so there are some people in less developed countries that can't afford the seeds. Now, the U.S. gives away more food than any other country in the world, and so the U.S. Gives away a lot of seeds to different countries, but there's still areas where these haven't been introduced except for through markets and having to buy. Another way that we can increase the productivity of existing farmland is by improving yield through genetic engineering of seeds. And through genetic engineering of seeds, they can increase the nutrients and the proteins within the plants that are grown from it. They can make these seeds so that they're resistant to fungus and to pests, so they will thrive. They make strains of them that are drought tolerant, and this goes again to different climates. In some areas where it's very arid and the soil tends to go away and there's not enough rain, then these seeds can survive on much less water. And we talked same way when it was selective breeding, genetic engineering, is that these can increase the yields from one crop substantially. Now, there has been some resistance to genetically modified seeds because the effects on humans are still somewhat unknown. There have been studies, because it's so young, there are studies still ongoing to see if there are any long-term effects on humans by genetically modified seeds. And some countries in Africa refuse to accept genetically modified seeds. President Mugabe of Zimbabwe refused a shipment of genetically modified corn from the United States, even though 80% of his people were starving because it was genetically modified. One other issue is that when seeds, whether they're genetically modified or have been bred to be stronger strains, because there's hunger in countries, sometimes the people have to eat the seed to survive, and they don't have it to turn around and plant for their next growing season. The last way that we can increase the productivity of existing farmland is through increased fertilizer use. Now, there are more fertilizers that are better, that are being developed so that they can increase the fertility of the soil. With increased fertilizer use, though, can come the increased pollution that's associated with it. However, now with composting, which we're going to look at in detail, you can create fertile soil by taking the decay materials that we would throw away anyway, and you can use this on land, and then you'll still have to use fertilizer, but you will have to use less of it because you're already adding in fertile soil to begin with. So now we know ways that we can increase the productivity of existing farmland, and hopefully through these, and as technology continues, we will be able to increase yields. We will be able to find new ways to feed the world. And this is just one way that we can look at it through increasing this productivity. That's a foundational start for where we go. So if you have any questions, send me an email and I'll get back to you. And it's going to be a great week. Thanks for listening.